Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Welcome to the bus. We are still here in Richardson, having a great time engaging with the local community, civic leaders, performers, creatives, innovators, financiers, all what it takes to bring innovation to the forefront. Today's interview, though, is a little bit different. We had a conversation with Merrick, Porchéddu. She runs Artist Uprising. Now, if you're not familiar with Artist Uprising, they are a company that plays kind of this middle ground between brands such as Nike and creative artists. Could be musicians, muralists, any on the creative side, and plays kind of that translation role, right? Helps understand the information that an artist needs to go create something really compelling, yet not get all tangled up in the corporate world of corporate speak. And, she's had some pretty big impacts here in Richardson. She's actually working on a number of artist installations and programs here in Richardson, which she talks about in the interview. But she also talks about the issues of branding and storytelling and how to create compelling experiences and the role. We do spend a little bit of time, actually not a little, a fair amount of time, talking about NFT. So if you're not familiar with NFT, you're definitely going to want to listen about that and how she got involved in that and what she thinks that could have as far as an impact on the way artists are compensated, how art is distributed, how art is owned, how art is resold. And so you definitely want to check that out. This was, again, not what I would say would be a traditional type of a guest we've had on Killer Innovations. And it's a real eye-opener, and I'm thinking we will have more guests like this because it offers a completely different view, particularly when it comes to creatives. And look, if you're listening to this show and you're highly innovative and highly creative, you are a creative. And the question gets down to is how are you going to make money? How do you do what really drives you? Whether you're a photographer or a painter or a sculptor, whatever it is, this is the show for you. You want to make sure you listen to this entire show and really glean the expertise that Merrick has for you. So without any further ado, we're going to jump into this week's episode. But before we do that, got a favor to ask: like, share, and follow. Like this episode, share it with others who you think would benefit, and follow us on social media. With that, let's jump into this week's episode. So, Merrick, give us a little bit of background on the Artist Uprising. It's your company.
Yeah.
You obviously are very focused on the creative side of the marketplace. So give us a little context of the Artist Uprising and some of the things you've been doing recently.
Yeah. So Artist Uprising is basically kind of I would say, for lack of a better word, we're the handshake between creatives of all different types and large brands and companies. Sometimes even cities or, commercial developments, things like that. But essentially what we do is we help kind of connect and curate the right type of talent with, these large corporations, brands, whatever. And it's usually, honestly, my whole company started on one question, which was when I would sit down with businessmen and women, I'd say, what's your creative need that you have right now? And I found that sometimes it was so niche. It was such a specific thing. It wasn't just, oh, I need an agency to do something. It was, I have this wall and it needs something awesome on it. And it needs to be custom and it needs to be meaningful and things like that. So I say we, at the time it was me. I've done this company for about 7 years now. And so I just started curating different artists that I loved, and it started working. And then from there, just kind of our mission statement became to abolish the term starving artistry. I'm super passionate about it. I'll talk about that in a second. But I was just so tired of artists not getting paid. so really the whole company kind of started from there, and honestly everything has just evolved from that space of just really finding work for artists.
It's interesting because, a lot of the artists I know, right, they want to figure out to make that connection, but where they have a skills gap is that connection
Yes.
of how do I take my creative abilities and apply it
Mm-hmm.
to something that a business person or an owner or an entrepreneur would be
Yeah.
willing to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like you're trying to play that
Yes.
bridging, almost the universal translator between
Yes.
creatives and
Mm-hmm.
the business people.
And it is two different languages.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I really speak both, I guess just because I'm run a company, but also I'm a creator myself. But just to see the breakdown in communication between the two. Now, it doesn't mean that that's 100% of the time. There's lots of creatives that can, sit down and really communicate to a corporation, why their skill set should be utilized. But also on the flip side, the corporate side has a really hard time communicating their needs,
Right.
or they have a hard time communicating, it's not so literal. And an artist sometimes just needs to hear like, okay, what do you want to achieve? And I think sometimes I have to help the corporate clients really massage what they actually are saying,
Well, and I can speak from personal experience. We opened up our offices in Silicon Valley, in Sunnyvale, and I've lived in the valley for decades. And so we had this entryway into the office building, and my facilities team is kind of like, well, should we just make the red wall go? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
You're talking to a CEO who started off wanting to be an architect. No,
Mhm.
we're not doing just a red wall as soon as you come in, when you come into the
Exactly.
lobby, right? And it turned into trying to convey, because it was me communicating to my facilities team, then trying to communicate to the interior architects about what that, oh my gosh, it was like, talk about
Yeah.
lost in translation.
Yes. Yeah.
It was the Chinese phone game in spades that you play as a kid.
It's funny that you said that because I'm literally having that exact conversation. We're doing something with American Airlines right now, which is really, really cool. But they have a wall that, it's like, what do we do with this? And so anyway, we're looking at all of these different options of, neon installations to fine art installations to something that's more architectural. And I absolutely love it. I love this part of what I do is just to get to present options and see the light and the life come, out
Well,
of the
and
client.
it's interesting because in the corporate world, I mean, I could tell you after we actually did the installation in Sunnyvale and the facilities team saw it, they're like,
Mhm.
oh, now, it's
Yes.
almost you have to wait till you get to the end and then
Yes.
backtrack the dots.
I
And everybody goes, oh,
Right.
okay, now I get it.
There's so many times where I'll sit there and be like, okay, you have to trust me.
Yeah,
You just trust
let
me.
go.
Yeah, let me get to the end, and then if you really don't like it, I'll pay you back.
Yeah.
That hasn't happened.
Well, like in many cases, I would guess they are literal. I want something that's aligns with the brand.
Yes. Yep, that's
What
what you hear every
what the
day.
heck?
Yeah.
What does that mean? So talk a little bit about some of the other things. I know you've been pretty active here in the Dallas Fort Worth
Mhm.
Richardson area,
Yeah.
specifically around NFT and that being a new emerging space.
Yes.
You may need to take it just a half a step back and give context here
Yeah,
on
sure.
NFTs.
Yeah, so kind of how I got thrown into NFTs, which is exactly what happened. Artist Uprising / myself being an agent, an agent of brands to creators, we do represent several international graphic designers and artists and whatnot. And so when this whole, rise of the conversation of NFTs happened, I had not caught on yet. I'm just over here doing my own thing, just busy working on my normal stuff. And in 1 week, my emails got flooded with these requests coming in for my artists, of, hey, we want to collaborate with so and so on this, new NFT, or hey, we want to $50,000 to this artist to make an NFT. And I'm like, okay, the people are throwing out, large dollar amounts, kind of like candy all of a sudden. And I was like, what is this? So I'm over here Googling what NFT is, trying to understand. And then one of the artists that we actually represent, his name is Magdiel Lopez, but he's also my creative director at Artist Uprising, and we own a creative agency called Belmont together. And so he comes in, and I was on the phone, and he was just, nervous, just sitting there, just his legs just, bouncing up and down. And so I get off the call, and I was like, what is your problem? And he goes, okay, we need to talk about NFTs. And I was like, what is this? And long story short, I get on enough of these Zoom calls, and I mean, One Republic was wanting to collaborate, and then you have Sprite over here, and you have something out in Berlin that had reached out to us, and then something at Pixar, and I'm like, this is crazy. And the more conversations I was a part of, the more I thought it started to make a lot of sense, and we can kind of backtrack and talk about that. But I thought, for Dallas, we need to bring this to a physical, real life scenario to educate people on why this is so awesome. And why it's a big cultural change agent, and I could see within a week what I'm looking at long term. So we decided to host the first NFT pop-up gallery here in Dallas, and we did that, and lo and behold, it was the third one in the country. So we had lots and lots of press over it, and anyway, it was a really crazy ordeal how quickly that took off.
Right. Right. So back up, and let's give just a quick definition of how do you describe an NFT for somebody who's not into it,
Right. Well, if you Google it, it still won't make sense. Non-fungible token. I still don't get it. But the way, in layman's terms, the way that I describe it is, it's almost like art buying and selling, or art trading, but there's a ledger. And the fact that it's digital and online, this ledger makes it public to everyone. So, this seatbelt sitting next to me is, only valued at what you're going to pay for it. So if you give me $5, then that's, what it is. But that ledger says, if I sell a piece of digital art online, or if I put it up for an auction and somebody spends $5, $5,000, $5 million, whatever that price point is, then it's now publicly shown, almost kind of like the stock market, And then that buyer of that work, when they go and they resell it, then there can be a kickback all the way down the chain every single time it resells. And there's a 10% kickback all the way back to the artist. That's not true 100% of the time, but for foundation and
so this kind of solves the problem of artists who become famous many years later or after they've passed on, and the artist gets nothing. They sold it originally for $100, and all of a sudden it's a $10 million artwork.
Yes.
And they don't get to participate in that.
Correct. And that has just, it's almost like the answer has come for that problem. And I was describing in another interview, traditionally, you have your traditional galleries, and an artist, does a commission, or they might, sell a piece of work, and then the gallery or the agent makes their percent, and then it goes on and it can be resold. And again, just like you said, the artist never knows who's resold it, if that ever even happened. But with this, the artist gets that kickback payment all the way through the many resells that could happen, but so do the former owners of that piece. And so now you have this, like, for me, this is so cool, because I'm a big advocate for the artist, in particular, to make money, but also I'm a business person. So I'm seeing, like, this is such a return on investment if you are investing in the right artists.
Right.
And then as an agent, I'm really excited because you get to actually put the right artists at the table and say, okay, to anybody who is interested in participating and investing, or even just having fun, play money in this, let's look at what artists can come to the table right now, and let's see what they can do in this NFT space. So I've just been kind of watching. I've been watching a lot. I've played a little bit in it and made a little bit of money, lost a little bit of money, whatever. But but I do think that it's cool to see, some of these really famous NFT artists they don't really have a following anywhere else. They just put their chips
Well, I
in
mean,
and
in the early days of NFT, you also wondered, was it really around the art or was it around the NFT?
exactly.
Right? So,
Yes.
is it the people enamored with the technology saying, I'm going to get in early because I
Yep.
don't know what this exactly is, but there seems to be a lot of energy. So I'm going to go grab some stuff just
Yep.
as a way to play the game. Or is it really around, I really want that
Piece
art?
of art.
And because of the way the ledger works, it basically gives you a digital certificate of authenticity
Exactly.
versus you don't have to, is that really a Picasso? Got to take it to
Yeah.
an expert, got to get them to validate. You don't have to worry about that in with the ledger.
Right. Yeah, and it is interesting because some of the NFTs that have sold for so much money they're not aesthetically. I mean, some of them are tweets. you know, it's just so interesting to watch. But when you do see some that are really the art itself is, um, people are buying that. I find that interesting because a lot of the times it's animated. It has an animated aspect to it. Um, some of the artists that have come on board that I've known and they've participated outside of NFT and crypto world, they're super super famous, and then they come on and they launch their first NFT, and I've seen some of them kind of fall flat.
Hmm.
And so the question is why? What is it about that? Is it and really for me, I think, again, I'm no expert but from what I'm seeing is there is a huge crypto community. And if you can be in these chat rooms and part of the community, and then you come out and you release your NFT and you let them know. I mean, right now, people are really kind of coming around almost like a family, like a crypto family. And they want to help promote each other so that the whole overall thing lifts. But and so some of those artists that kind of fell flat, I was like, well, are they talking? Like, are they part of this community? And they were not. They were just, I just want to try it out, make some
Right.
money.
So I'm
Yeah,
just gonna log in
just gonna log in, drop it.
upload something.
I'm big on Instagram, so I'm sure it'll be fine. And you're seeing that that's not gonna help you. Um, and for right now, I find it kind of awesome that even in the NFT world, people aren't spending their thousands and thousands of dollars on an NFT based on the followers. Not yet, at least. From what I'm.
Well, that opens up an interesting conversation, right? Because for creatives, it is about your whatever you're whatever you're producing, whether
Hmm.
that's photography or paints or digital graphics, whatever. It is about your following,
Yeah.
right? And at least in my experience, following in one platform does not always translate
Translate.
to the other
Correct.
place. Whether I'm big on Instagram or
Yep.
Pinterest or Facebook or whatever, it's not like it's one big following.
Family. Right.
It really depends on where you invest your time
Correct.
to reach that. And I think the same applies into the NFT. It sounds like
Yeah.
the same applies on the NFT world.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, as more artists are getting involved on the NFT world, you're starting to see those followers going up. But I mean, even just 4 months ago for me, some of the ones that were selling the highest may have only had 100 followers on Foundation or OpenSea or whatever. But but I'm like, 100 followers. I'm like, what? It's not, I mean, because I kind of live in the Instagram world a little bit because that's where
Mhm.
we really curate from. So it's really important for us to find artists that we, pitch to brands that have a following because there's a marketing aspect to that as well. That
Right.
the
So if they do something for a brand like
correct,
Sprite or
yeah,
American Airlines, it's a you get the art creative side plus you get that
yes,
following to draw through.
it's a big win,
Right.
for the corporate
So
side.
so I'm going to take another side step here. So in your case, you're out there trying to find the next artist,
Hmm.
right? And you say, you're living in the Instagram world to find them. What's the characteristic of one that you get excited about? What is it you look for?
Yeah, so I really look for artists who, if they're on Instagram because it's all visual, if they are consistent. That's the first thing I'm looking for is what are they releasing, and is what they're releasing consistent? Because a lot of the times I'll see artists like bounce around, and I say that's also myself. I tend to do that a lot, but when what they're posting starts to make sense, and it's kind of like, just the rule of familiarity. If you can just literally throw your finger on a feed and it scroll and you see 16 frames and they're similar enough, the brain says, I understand that art.
Right. I understand that artist. I understand what
Yeah.
his vision is, what he's trying to convey.
Yes. And so I look for consistency. I do look for following. It doesn't, I have, employed artists that don't have much of a following because I know them, or I believe in where they're trying to go. But we consult those artists a lot. So to get to that place to where the brands can then understand, okay, yeah, they might only have 5,000 followers, but they can see within a few frames what they're getting. So those are kind of our criteria, really. But also, I'm big into word of mouth. So I'll ask a lot of artists that we have great success with, not just because of their aesthetic, but because of who they are as people.
Right.
Are they going to show up? Are they going to? Because I can help with all of the back end details. I'm not worried about that, but I need to know that they are going to that I can count on them. And so when I find an artist that I can count on and that I really, really like working with, I always ask them. I'm like, okay, who are other artists that you recommend that are like you?
Yeah.
And of course, then they send me their Instagram handles and we go from there.
No. Well, it's almost like the same thing as where I'm at as a CEO. Best employees are referrals.
Yes. Yep.
It cuts out a lot of the digging through the pile to find the diamond versus give me at least a diamond in the rough that I can shape.
Yeah, it's funny. Somebody asked me the other day if it was, can't even remember which city it was for, but they wanted to do a call to artists for muralists. They had like 30 mural locations that they wanted to do, so they wanted to do a call to artists. And we were project managing it, and I said, you are absolutely welcome to do the call to artists, but I'm gonna find the connector and the connection point to some of the best artists in that city first before I like go through 100 submissions. Right. And it doesn't mean that we're not going to go through those submissions, but we're really going to ask around first, and that helps.
So give me a sense of the range of projects. We talked about, murals.
Yep.
I know you're doing, some work here in the Richardson area, the city of Richardson. So I could just imagine the breadth, but walk us through a few samples of the range of projects you work on.
Yeah. So sometimes with, for a city, well, I'll just talk about Richardson since we're here, but just really looking at if there's a redevelopment program going on, we really want to pull in local artists. So we're not going to be pulling in artists from all over to come to a city, whether it's Richardson or Milwaukee or, wherever. We want to highlight the talent within the area. So, that could look like, a lot of the times it looks like murals. Then I like to take it the next step and do augmented reality murals. So we're going to bring in animators at that point. I tested last year because we do work with musicians. So a lot of the times we'll do live music activations and little, for Richardson, we're doing a Main Street celebration. So we'll have festival live music. But at other times for companies, it's just, having ongoing musicians show up once a month for happy hours,
Right.
So, but the music scene got hit so hard last year that we were like, okay, how can we, art exploded. So we did more murals than we've ever done. We did like 200 something murals last year under the guise of construction is essential. So, commercial developers is all we heard from last year. And
they could get a lot of construction done because there was nothing else going on.
Yeah, nothing else going on. So we sent muralists, out for those. But for the musicians, they, our tours stopped, everything stopped for them. And so what we did is we pivoted and we had them record there was so much good music that came out of people's apartments last year. But we had them record some really cool sets at home. And we implemented them into the augmented side of our murals. So you could go and do an art walk with your phone and hold your phone up to a mural and then hear it wasn't a live concert, but a pre-recorded concert that would pop up on your phone, and you could put your, earbuds in and listen to local artists. So it was like local layered on top of local. And that gets really fun. And then, on the larger scale, when we're working with the big brands, it can turn into, anything from doing a big sculpture, piece for their headquarters. Or it could look like having celebrity, musicians and stuff come in and do their galas or whatever big event that they have. But I really tend to look for tipping point artists. So artists who do have quite a big following, but they're not the celebrity status yet. And
Right.
that's my place that I go for. Because when you compare, I remember back in a few years ago, it was like Leon Bridges was paired with Jameson, I think, or some whiskey company. And I remember seeing the billboard, and this is before he won a Grammy, and then he wins a Grammy, and then it's like, and I thought, look at that brand, I bet is really happy they
Yeah.
got him when it wasn't probably
Well,
as
that was
expensive.
at HP. We did the deal with Shaun White
Yes.
before he won the first
Yeah.
we paid for his first van that
Wow.
he threw his bicycle up on and his skateboard on when he traveled around the competitions.
Amazing.
And then he goes off and he wins the Olympics and he's making
Wow.
corporate appearances.
And how fun is that for you?
Oh,
It's so fun because
yeah.
then it becomes the story that you tell, and so yeah, we've seen all kinds of crazy, really, really, I mean, artists they blow my mind every day. I think I've seen it all, and then all of a sudden I'm like, never thought of that.
Yeah.
And to the fact that the other day we were looking up some stuff for American Airlines, and we ended up finding that I was like, I wonder if we could paint a plane. I really want to do that. Sure enough, it's been done. Somebody I don't know when it was, but it was.
So they did a wrap. They probably
No, it
they
was a mural that was
painted.
on the plane for a short period of time for the it was maybe a soccer tournament or something. I don't know. I'm not into sports. I'm into arts, but anyway, something for championship, and it was
Wow. Because we're sitting here in the bus, and I actually looked at doing a wrap.
yeah.
And there's a guy in Denver who's really well known for doing very creative graphics, but he does wraps. And he does the wraps for, I think it's Frontier Airlines.
Cool.
So he designs these
Yeah.
wraps, and then they go out and they wrap the plane. And I'm like, holy smokes.
Wow.
What is it you cannot wrap?
Right.
And,
Totally.
but, in those cases, it allows you to create not a cookie cutter brand image, but you can actually
Yes.
change the brand image
Right.
to tie in
Yeah.
whatever is going on.
Yeah, I see that a lot with it's funny, I've done more Nike stuff, and I've never actually talked to Nike. It's the strangest thing. I've never had a direct conversation with anybody at Nike. It's just these agencies that will contact us, or artists that we work with that will loop us in, and then we get working with the agencies. But I've done more Nike collaborations with artists the other day we did one with a 10-year-old here in Dallas, and she's got, I don't know, 20,000-30,000 followers. And we did a pop-up mural for 2 months with her that had this, again, augmented reality animation where you scan your phone and then you go into this whole program with Nike and Gianna. It's super cool. And it's like, man, brands are really wanting this stuff. They want to connect with creatives.
What's really driving that, though? 'Cause, I mean, you see do they really understand what they're doing, or are they just shotgunning to see what works and what kind of a reaction they get?
I think both. I've seen both. The ones that are really strategic, those are super fun to see those executed well. We did one with Canon USA where they were coming out with a new printer that prints posters, like art posters. So they went on a whole strategic campaign to find graphic artists. And the way that they promoted that was they would have a film crew go in, or even an artist kind of film themselves using the printer. So they would just send the printer or whatever. Well, because last year was pandemic and all of that, and their film crew couldn't come in. And so our film crew kind of worked with their New York agency we shot it here and sent all of the footage there. And then we had the idea to like add in this augmented reality aspect to it. And that commercial was such a cool thing because it was so clear what the product was for, but it was about the artist. But it's like the product was secondary to the artist, but because of the way that it was told, you wanted that printer. You wanted to go buy that.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of big brands. Look, HP was Fortune sixth largest company in the world, right? And you always the challenge, or I shouldn't say the challenge, but you always run the risk when you do these kind of times. Shaun White or Hamilton, who was the driver who drove the Indy car for HP in Indianapolis, etc., was how do you make it authentic? How do you make it authentic with a creative? And it's not just, oh, I'm doing the name face, stick it up on and here's a printer and here's the face.
Yeah. I think that's the beauty of art. That's the beauty of creativity and innovation and entrepreneurship. It's the ideation phase. Artists live and breathe that every day. And a lot of the times, in the corporate side of things, you can get into so much about systems and procedures and got to get our message out and it's got to be on brand and things like that sometimes when that control comes in, and I see that a lot happen too, when the control comes in, it snuffs out the artist, it snuffs out the spirit of innovation from the artist, and the artist is going to just try to get it done. They're going to just, okay, I just need to get this off they want so many different revisions and they want this and that or whatever, that the brands don't understand that if they actually let go and give the artist let them do their thing, that what they're going to get back is going to be.
But that's kind of your role then, right?
Yeah.
Because you've got the corporate, they're working with their agency. The agencies work with you. Then so you're almost what I would refer to crudely as the BS filter a little bit between the corporate guys. Like, trust me, let go. Let me work this, and trust me, you're going to be happy when in the end result.
Yes. Yeah. It's educating on both sides, and it is funny because a lot of the times with the corporate side is when they say, well, especially in the beginning, I don't hear it much now, but in the beginning they'd be like, well, why should we hire you guys when we can just go straight to the artist? And I said, plenty of times I said, you go do that and then call me.
Yeah, knock yourself out.
Yeah.
Go for that.
Do that one time and then call me, So, right. But and it's not to demean the artist at all. It's just that the language is so different.
Right.
And it's sometimes decoding what the brand is saying and then also communicating back, to the artist. Like, I mean, the brand could say 10 things and I know that the artist needs to hear 1 or 2 out of those 10 things to get it.
Right.
To not overwhelm them and not, stress them out.
Right. And you talk about your role in on the creative side of kind of, like I said, being this little bit of this BS filter, translator between. The same applies to even internal teams that have, like, I had design teams, industrial design teams reporting to me, the innovation teams. As an innovation leader, guess what? You need to play that role.
Yeah.
You got to be the pushback on the corporate side and let your creatives, do their thing and translate though effectively.
Yes. Yeah. And, for us, I think primarily what we are, we do a lot of curation, but now I think a lot of brands they'll find the artists that they want to work with sometimes before they ever come to us. But right now it's like we're really big in the project management role. So it's like executing and seeing that thing through where we can give our insurance and our, staff and our communication, tools to the brand so that they're not, if they're doing a campaign that is multiple artists, a lot of these artists don't have insurance. A lot of these artists don't know how to, handle some of these portals of payment. Oh my gosh, some of them I'm even confused on, but it's like, why can't we just send an invoice and get paid? But anyway, it's just sometimes it gets a little bit more intricate with some of the larger corporations, and these artists would drown in it,
right?
And because they would be
spending less time creating,
exactly,
and spending more on the administrative,
yeah,
which no artist wants to spend any time on the administrative,
right? I know. I had one time, it was a sculpture deal or whatever, but I realized when it was all said and done, I had gone through my email correspondence with the client. I had 97 emails that would have gone to the artist if we hadn't been in it. And I thought, I just don't even know how artists do this on their own sometimes, because there's a lot that do, you know.
Exactly. So as we wrap this up, Merrick, if someone listening to today's show wanted to track what you're up to, what's the best place?
Yeah, they can just go to artistuprising.com or find us on Artist Uprising on any social channel.
Great.
Easy to
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming in and joining us today. And I'm now going to become a fan follower because I love what you're doing.
Thanks. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, at the beginning, I told you to make sure you listen to the end. You obviously have listened to the end, so thank you for that. But I think there's a lot of great nuggets in this interview, particularly as a creative, thinking about maybe an alternative approach to how you find that next gig, that next project, a way to think about working with large corporate brands. So check out her site, check out her work. She was very, very gracious in the interview. I got a lot out of it and really appreciate her taking the time to join us here in the studio on the bus here in Richardson. And hopefully you found that as beneficial and insightful as I did. Thank you for joining us. We do value the time you take to listen, the time that you could be doing any number of other things in your day. The fact that you're listening to us, we do greatly appreciate it. Got a favor to ask? Let other people know about the show. Help me pay it forward. That's my motivation, and has been my motivation since 2005, is to pay it forward. Find a way to invest the time and energy into the young engineers, the young architects, the young designers, the young creatives who are looking for those career opportunities that allow them to have a satisfying career and be fairly compensated for the work they do. So we want to pay it forward, and we do that by asking you to let as many people as you know about the show and help us spread the word. And with that, we appreciate your time. We will be back soon with another episode. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.